Growing confrontations in the Occupy protest. Tonight, how tension is intensifying between cities and demonstrators who refuse to leave.
We'll reduce defaults, we'll strengthen the economy.
Plus plans to make it easier for college grads to repay their student loans. The numbers and the reasons behind the government's move. And after a big business flop, what's next for Netflix after hundreds of thousands of customers said no thanks? Your Independent News Network starts right now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to INN News. I'm Mike Mickle. It started as a largely peaceful movement. Now the Occupy protests are seeing more violence and confrontations with police. We begin with one of the most chaotic scenes yet. Police in Oakland, California cracked down on protesters. Armed in full riot gear, officers used tear gas and smoke bombs to disperse the crowd. They've been camped out in a downtown plaza, but the mayor said it was no longer safe. He ordered everyone out. Police say they gave protesters several warnings, but the group stayed put. Dozens of arrests there. To Atlanta, Georgia now, the city ordered protesters to leave a park after weeks of demonstrations, but many did not go peacefully. Ryan Young continues our coverage.
Today I made the decision and revoked the executive order.
Just after 11:30, the order to vacate the park was given. Then in a flash, Atlanta police, fire, and corrections all came at once, adding more officers to the park. Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed believes the park reached a point where dialogue was no longer working.
Those concerns were increased today when we saw a gentleman in the park with an AK-47. We could not determine whether the weapon was loaded and could not get additional information on the weapon.
Mounted patrol, motorcycle units, and an arrest team followed by a riot team all moved in. Several protesters who decided to get arrested all got walked out to this line before their bus ride to jail.
The numbers are between 125 and 150 people that we had out and play tonight.
Our city should be pleased with the way that the officers across the street handled themselves and treated the people that we arrested. We photographed every single person.
The cost of this operation now soaring and could grow even higher.
We know for a fact that we have crossed the $300,000 threshold in terms of dollars spent.
That was Ryan Young reporting. In New York, where the protest started, demonstrators have cost the city more than $2 million, most of that in police overtime. The Obama administration says it wants to make it easier to repay federal student loans. The pay-as-you-earn program was set to take effect in 2 years, but the president wants to start it earlier. A key point of the plan, graduates would be allowed to pay 10% of their disposable income a year toward their loans. If they still owe after 20 years, the rest will be forgiven.
We're going to reduce those monthly payments, depending on the individual, by as much as a couple $100s. So if we can reduce those monthly payments, we'll reduce defaults, we'll strengthen the economy.
The president will do this by executive order. That means he bypasses Congress. The White House also says this is a part of an effort to mobilize the vote of younger Americans. Many supported Obama in 2008. Making things even tougher for students, the cost of going to college is climbing. A new report shows tuition at the average public university jumped 8% this year. That's to more than $8,000. The price tag for attending a community college is up too, jumping 8% to about $3,000 a year for full-time tuition. The increases are more than double the rate of inflation between 2010 and 2011. To the president's housing plan now. Tonight we're getting a closer critique of the numbers involved. Yesterday he announced his plans to make it easier for struggling homeowners to lower their mortgage payments. Those proposals are getting mixed reviews. Jessica Yellen has the story.
Nevada, a must-win for the president in 2012. Statewide, home values have fallen 53% since the height of the crisis, 59% in Las Vegas. So that's where the president is unveiling his latest housing plan, something he can do without Congress.
Anything that's within our authority to do as an administration, we start doing immediately, and we don't wait for Congress because the American people can't afford to wait. They need help right now.
If you have good credit, good payment history, but your house is underwater, they'll ease the rules so you can refinance with no new appraisal, no new credit check, no risk-based fees. They'll even consider you current if you've missed just one payment this year. It's the latest effort by the president to staunch the bleed in the housing market, an effort that began just after his inauguration.
Through this plan, we will help between 7 and 9 million families restructure or refinance their mortgages so they can avoid foreclosure.
But that plan fell far short of expectations. By the government's measure, fewer than 817,000 homeowners have permanently modified their mortgages. Just over 890,000 have refinanced. The administration has since unveiled 9 other housing plans with limited effect.
What I'm really concerned about is making sure that the housing market overall recovers enough that it's not such a huge drag on the economy, because if it isn't, then people will have more confidence, they'll spend more, more people will get hired, and overall the economy will improve.
Also in the works, look for the administration to roll out a new plan that would take many of the empty houses that have been foreclosed on off the market. Over time, that could help drive up home prices.
Well, we now know alcohol poisoning led to the death of singer Amy Winehouse. A pathologist told a London coroner's court the 27-year-old's blood alcohol levels were more than 5 times the legal limit to drive. It was ruled death by misadventure. Her family says it is a relief finally to know what happened. The Grammy Award-winning artist was found dead at her North London home July 23rd. She had a history of alcohol and drug abuse. Yemeni women burned their veils in protest of President Ali Abdullah Saleh's brutal crackdown on anti-government demonstrations. Thousands gathered in the capital. They put veils and scarves in a huge pile and set it ablaze. The act is highly symbolic in the conservative Islamic nation. It's the first time in the 9 months of Yemen's uprising that such an event has occurred. Floodwaters continue to rise in Thailand. Leaders say the nation's capital could be submerged under nearly 5 feet of water. One airport's already closed. It's being used as a shelter for flood victims. Millions of people have been displaced by the rising water. The U.S. assures South Korea it will remain a strong ally in the region. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta visiting Seoul today. He reiterated that the United States will continue to work closely with South Korea on both military and economic relations. The move comes as the U.S. considers military budget cuts. The Virgin flight of Boeing's 787 Dreamliner in Japan. It took off from Tokyo, bound for Hong Kong. It's the first commercial jet made from a lightweight composite carbon fiber material rather than aluminum. The cost-saving plane uses about 20% less fuel than a comparable jet. That makes for cheaper flying and more room for passengers. And that's your Global News Now. Well, toddlers and technology, smartphones and tablets in their tiny hand. We're going to look at the possible benefits and consequences of this digital generation. Plus an interruption to a wedding that also brought an ironic twist. That and more coming up. We want to remind you INN News is on Facebook. Now you can also find us on Twitter at INN News Network. And we're on YouTube. We're reaching out to you so you can reach out to us. INN News will be right back.